Have you ever wondered why your relationships follow the same painful pattern? You give everything, your time, your devotion, your soul, only to be discarded like yesterday's garbage. There's a reason for this cycle of suffering, and it dates back centuries to the observations of history's greatest strategist. Machiavelli understood what modern relationship and experts are too afraid to tell you. Weakness in men doesn't inspire protection or compassion. It triggers contempt, exploitation, and eventually, abandonment. You feel it, don't you? That constant anxiety, walking on eggshells around her, the fear that one wrong move might make her pull away. You're trapped in an invisible cage of your own making, watching as your dignity erodes with each compromise, each unanswered text, each emotional manipulation you pretend not to notice. Today, you'll finally understand the brutal truth behind female psychology that Machiavelli observed centuries ago. Why women are hardwired to despise weakness, why they test you relentlessly, and most importantly, how this knowledge can free you from this cycle of emotional servitude forever. The solution isn't more sacrifice or understanding. It's recognizing the Machiavellian game being played around you, a game where the rules have always been hidden from view, until now. You've been playing checkers while she's been playing chess. Every relationship operates on an invisible strategic battlefield where power dynamics determine everything: respect, desire, commitment. Machiavelli understood this fundamental truth. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. When you display weakness, neediness, emotional instability, fear of abandonment, you trigger a primal psychological response in women. This isn't about modern culture. It's about deeply ingrained evolutionary psychology. Consider what happened last time you showed vulnerability. Did she comfort you as promised? Or did something subtle shift? Her eyes slightly cooled, her messages became delayed, her enthusiasm dampened. You sensed it, didn't you? That almost imperceptible withdrawal that left you scrambling to regain her approval? This is the first Machiavellian principle at work. It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. When you display weakness, you forfeit both. You become neither feared nor loved, merely useful until something better appears. When you demonstrate emotional weakness through constant validation seeking, insecurity, or fear of loss, you activate three sophisticated psychological mechanisms that operate beneath conscious awareness. 1. The boundary test escalation. Women instinctively test boundaries, not because they're malicious, but because they're psychologically driven to assess your strength. These tests begin small and innocent. Could you cancel your plans tonight? I really need you. I don't like that friend of yours. Why didn't you respond to my message right away? Each concession you make doesn't satisfy. It triggers a more demanding test. This isn't conscious manipulation. It's an automatic psychological assessment system. She's not trying to be difficult. Her emotional operating system is scanning for weakness. You've experienced this, haven't you? The way small compromises snowballed into complete surrender of your boundaries, time, and eventually, self-respect. That uncomfortable feeling when you canceled plans with friends for the 5th time. The nagging sense that your boundaries were dissolving. You weren't imagining it. You were witnessing Machiavellian female strategy in action. The promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. 2. The emotional withdrawal matrix. This is perhaps the most sophisticated strategy in female Machiavellian psychology. When a woman senses weakness, she institutes a system of intermittent emotional rewards and calculated withdrawals. Today, she's affectionate and attentive. Tomorrow, she's cold and distant. You did nothing wrong, yet suddenly, her emotional presence vanishes. You rack your brain trying to identify your mistake. You apologize for things you didn't do. You walk on eggshells, desperate to restore the connection. This isn't random moodiness. It's a sophisticated control mechanism. Remember that weekend when everything was perfect? Then suddenly she became distant over something trivial. You spent hours trying to fix the situation, didn't you? That night when your phone lit up with her message after hours of silence, the flood of relief you felt. That cycle is emotional conditioning at its finest, a Machiavellian tactic that creates dependence through uncertainty. As Machiavelli noted, men are so simple and so much inclined to obey immediate needs that a deceiver will never lack victims. 3. The scarcity and selective validation protocol. The third mechanism operates on a principle Machiavelli would recognize instantly. Perceived scarcity creates value. When a woman senses your weakness, she instinctively begins to make her approval seem increasingly rare and valuable, provide validation unpredictably, creating an addictive reward pattern, compare you unfavorably to others, sometimes subtly, sometimes overtly, position herself as the prize to be won rather than an equal partner. You felt this, haven't you? The way her compliments became rarer, more precious. The subtle mentions of other men who just get it, or know how to take charge. The way you found yourself working harder and harder for smaller and smaller crumbs of affection. This creates a psychological dependency where you measure your self-worth through her validation, a position of complete vulnerability and servitude. You might be wondering why this happens in every relationship. The answer lies in evolutionary psychology. For women, selecting the wrong partner historically meant death or abandonment during vulnerable periods. Their testing mechanisms evolved not out of cruelty, but survival necessity. A man who could be easily manipulated by enemies, who lacked the strength to protect resources, or who could be emotionally controlled represented a dangerous liability. This is why women test unconsciously and continuously. They're not being difficult. They're running ancient survival software designed to answer one question. Is this man strong enough to weather life's inevitable storms, or will he break when I need him most? Every time you fail these tests through displays of weakness, neediness, or emotional instability, you trigger a primal response, disappointment, followed by emotional withdrawal, followed by psychological replacement. She may still be physically present, but emotionally she's already gone. As this cycle progresses, a predictable pattern emerges. 1. You sense her withdrawal and increase your efforts to please. 2. Your increased efforts signal greater weakness, triggering more contempt. 3. Her emotional investment decreases as her psychological superiority increases. 4. You become increasingly desperate, accelerating the cycle. 5. She begins to view the relationship as a burden rather than a benefit. This is what Machiavelli understood about power dynamics. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. When a woman sees that you've surrounded yourself with your own weakness and insecurity, she estimates your value accordingly. Think about your last relationship collapse. Remember how desperately you tried to save it. The promises, the pleading, the desperate attempts to recapture what was already gone. That behavior didn't inspire her to stay. It confirmed her decision to leave. Now we arrive at the most devastating female Machiavellian strategy, what I call the replacement protocol. This is the end game that weak men never see coming until it's too late. When a woman has confirmed your weakness beyond doubt, she activates a three-phase strategy. Phase 1. The emotional transfer. She begins to systematically withdraw emotional investment while maintaining enough connection to keep you in place. Like a skilled investor, she diverts her emotional capital elsewhere while extracting maximum value from her existing position. You've experienced this phase, the increasing emotional distance, the reduced communication, the sense that you're performing for her approval rather than connecting as equals. You noticed her growing interest in her phone, new friends, new activities that mysteriously never included you. That wasn't coincidence. That was strategy. Phase 2. The parallel assessment. While maintaining the primary relationship, she begins evaluating replacement candidates, not necessarily through physical cheating, though that may occur, but through emotional comparison and connection building. Remember how her just friends suddenly seemed to multiply, how she became protective of her phone, how certain conversations stopped when you entered the room. You weren't paranoid. You were witnessing the parallel assessment phase. This phase isn't about finding someone to cheat with. It's about identifying your psychological replacement while maintaining her secure position. Phase 3. The cold execution. This is where Machiavelli's most brutal insight comes into play. Men should be either treated generously or destroyed, because they take revenge for slight injuries. For heavy ones, they cannot. Once a suitable replacement has been identified and secured, the final phase activates: the complete emotional disconnection and dismissal of the relationship's entire history and value. You know this moment, that conversation where she suddenly seemed like a different person, where the woman who once told you that you were her everything now looked at you with cold detachment, as if the months or years together meant nothing. Her ability to move on with shocking speed wasn't a quirk of her personality. It was the culmination of a process that began the first time you displayed significant weakness. As Machiavelli observed, the new ruler must determine all the injuries that he will need to inflict. He must inflict them once and for all. The cold, sudden break wasn't random cruelty. It was psychological efficiency. A clean, complete severing that prevented counter-strategy or emotional manipulation from your position of weakness. Now that you understand the brutal machinery operating beneath the surface of female psychology, you face a choice. You can continue the cycle, entering each new relationship with the same weaknesses, triggering the same Machiavellian responses, and suffering the same painful outcomes. Or you can recognize that Machiavelli's central insight about power applies directly to your relationships. A man who is used to acting in one way never changes. He must come to ruin when the times, in changing, no longer are in harmony with his ways. The path forward isn't about manipulation or becoming cold-hearted. It's about understanding that strength, emotional, psychological, and spiritual strength, isn't optional in relationships. It's the fundamental currency of respect and desire. This means establishing and maintaining firm boundaries, developing a life purpose greater than any relationship, building emotional self-sufficiency, recognizing and passing tests without resentment, understanding that true strength isn't dominance but unshakable self-possession. When Machiavelli wrote that weak men would suffer, he wasn't condemning them, he was challenging them to grow stronger. Have you recognized these patterns in your own relationships? Has this revealed strategies that were operating beneath your awareness? Comment below and share your experiences. If this video opened your eyes, hit the like button and subscribe for more truths that society is too afraid to tell you. Check out our previous videos on psychological strength and relationship dynamics. The knowledge you gain might save you years of unnecessary suffering. Remember, in the realm of relationships, as in politics, fortune favors the prepared mind. And now, you are prepared.